video build log of the Taft Hobbies Dornier Do-27 airplane. The actual Do-27 was a 39-foot wingspan, 31-foot length, short takeoff and landing style utility aircraft. The first German version of this flew in October of 1956. The aircraft was powered by a 6-cylinder Lycoming engine and produced 270 horsepower. The real full-scale version of this model cruised at 114 knots, had a max speed of 125 knots, and a stall speed of a low 40 knots. And it was popular because of its wide cabin and the ability to hold a couple of people quite comfortably for a small utility airplane. Now, the Taft Hobby version that you're looking at here has a 1,600 millimeter wingspan, or 63 inches. It's 1,234 millimeters long, again translates to about 48 inches, which makes it about a 1/8 scale of the original. It's powered by a 4250 700 kV brushless electric motor, and the instructions recommend a 3,000 to 5,000 milliamp hour LiPoly 4-cell battery. As you can see, the model's done, but let's step back in time and work through the assembly process. Let's go. Now, I've discarded the heavy packing box that came with the model, and what we're left with is this lightweight covered lid on top of a foam tub. Let's get the lid off and see what's inside. As we'll take a closer look at in just a minute, you can see that the model comes tightly packed. Everything's wrapped in individual plastic. Even small pieces have molded recesses here in the packing foam, and there's even a little pull-out plug here that's keeping the tail part of the fuselage together. So things are looking pretty good. Let's take a couple of seconds and pull it out, and we'll see what we've got left laying out on the table. As you can see, I have the model out of the packing, and it came through the shipping and delivery process in really good shape. There are no marks, bumps or bruises. Everything was in the packing container, very nice. And it was pretty ingenious the way that the container was molded to fit all of the pieces to protect them. As you can see, there are just a couple of pieces. We've got the fuselage here, wing halves, wing spars, landing gear, tail section, and propeller. The thing is supposed to go together with just a couple of screws, so no glue in the kit, spinner, and the instructions. So at this point, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to look over the instructions to see what I'm going to be doing assembling this Do-27. You can see that I've got a couple of the hatches off on the bottom of the model. This part just lifted out. We're going to be screwing that in. That covers the landing gear. And then the access panel where you'll be going in and out for the battery, I also have that pulled out. Now the landing gear just slides in, and so it's got, as I'll show you here, it's got just an L-shaped hook that's going to go into the hole here. And so the side-to-side forces on the landing gear are going to be held here by this plastic part, and obviously the bumps of when you land are going to be held by the plastic part as well. And so this just kind of squeezes in there, give it a little bit of pressure to squeeze it down in there. Everything is all assembled, and it's a nice snug fit. Now the next thing we're going to do is use these little plastic strips that came with the kit and put them down over the side support there of the landing gear. And so we're just going to do that with some little screws and drop them in. And remember, the only thing that this strip is really doing is holding the landing gear in, and you're not going to have a lot of upward pressure on it. So the fact that the screws are kind of small, I don't think is going to make a difference. We'll see after we've had a couple of chances to fly with it. So let me do that here just for a second. As you can see, we've got all of the straps in right now. The screws are kind of soft, so make sure you've got a screwdriver that's the proper size so you don't tear up the heads, because the plastic that they're going into is pretty firm. Next thing we're going to do is just slide the hatch back on. Notice the exhaust stacks go up underneath the cowling here, and so we'll guide those into place. They were a little sticky coming out, but as you can see, they just kind of go right back in. And then we're going to use the medium-sized screw that came with the kit. There's 3 long screws, 2 in the back, this one for the gear cover, and we're just going to drop that in and screw it in. There we go. That's all there is to the landing gear. The next thing we're going to do is put together the tail. And the tail just kind of snaps together. We've got the horizontal and the vertical stabilizer. The horizontal stabilizer just matches in right there on the plastic block that screws in. And then there's lights on this airplane, and so in this case the little wire, it's using a servo type connector down here that you can see plugs in to the servo connector here at the bottom, and that will allow us to have the tail light on, which is kind of handy that you don't have to mess with that wiring. So let me plug that in before we cinch this down. So I plug that servo connector in. If you stick your nose down in that little hole, you can see where the signal wire is on the servo, and then so you know where the red and the black is, so you can get that in there properly, and they end up not having to take the tail off when you discover later you put it in backwards. That would not be good. So that just kind of drops in. Watching as that goes in carefully, and then we're going to turn it over and mount it via the screws. So with the 3 screws, the 2 that I had left, I used the short one in the back. I just finished putting that in, and now I'm just going to drop the long one here in the front and screw that down, get it there into the receiver that was molded or added into the foam molding of that vertical stabilizer. And that went in very good. Was a nice alignment. The screw, I didn't have to search around for the screws. One of the things I did do, however, is with that little light switch, there was a little pressure on the top of the vertical stabilizer assembly right here. And when I pressed on it, I could see an indentation in the foam. And so I took my hobby knife and just cut out just a little square that matched the plug of that servo that powers the light, and then it went in there nice and tight. So a little bit of surgery there, pulled out just 3 or 4 square millimeters of foam, and then it fit nice and tight. And so you can see that right now we've pretty much got the fuselage together. The next step is just going to take a second and clip the clevises onto the control horns. So you can see back here, we've got the clevis coming with the control rod from the fuselage that fits here into the control horn. Now the clevis, you can see, is kind of loose, and so what you're going to want to do is just to turn that clevis so that you can adjust it so that the rudder is completely aligned with the rest of the vertical stabilizer when you've got it hooked up. Now, when dry fitting this, before I turned on the video, I discovered that the pin in this clevis was a little big for the hole, and so I used a very small drill bit that was just a little teeny bit bigger than the hole, and brought that hole a little bit wider so that the clevis pin will fit in it. And so now it's just going to be a matter of spreading it apart and dropping it in, putting the pin in the hole right here, and then I'm just going to snap it together. You can feel it snap together. Okay, now one of the other things I'm going to do as I finish up is I'm going to get a little bit of a 4-inch cable tie and wrap it around this clevis so it doesn't open up, leading to the result of a disconnect there. And I'm going to do that on each of the clevises on the various control surfaces. You can also slide a bit of fuel tubing up there if that's what you want to use, but I recommend with these plastic clevises to secure them tightly after you've got them in. Now we'll do the same thing to the elevator. Now we've done the same adjustments to the clevis here. In this case, I'm using a little needle nose pliers to hold the wire when I turn the clevis. In this particular model, in the fuselage side of things, the other end of the control rod is attached with a Z-bend. Now, if it was one of the little easy connectors that you just slide it through and cinch it down, then you could do the fine adjustments at the servo end. But since it's not, we want to make sure that we get them as close as we can, spinning the clevis around. And in this case, I had to turn the clevis around several times to get it the proper length. And so again, I'm just going to spread it apart and slide it into the hole. And as I did before, I used that same little drill bit to widen the hole just a little bit, and I could feel it snap together. And so we've got the tail surfaces all mounted and control rods connected, and we're just about done.